We're talking to Jonathan Klyn, who's the editor of the newsletter of Leybър International, which is the Labour Party's international branch, is it?
It organises all the Labour Party members outside the UK.
Okay, and there's a huge battle going on within the Labour Party structures in Britain, and from what I gather, you are very sympathetic to that struggle. Can you explain to us how did this struggle come about? How come this struggle? What happened? What provoked this struggle inside the Labour Party? Who's leading?
I think generally people in Britain are very fed up with austerity. There's been a long period of austerity. There's been declines in the National Health Service. All kinds of problems have got worse for a long period of time. And the previous Labour leadership was just offering austerity, light, to people, whereas the Conservative Party wanted to give even greater austerity. That was the alternative offered by the Labour Party in the past. And then when Jeremi Korbin stood as a candidate to become leader of the party, not only the existing Labour Party membership were in favour of that change, but hundreds and thousands of people joined the Labour Party in order to support Jeremi Corbyn's as a candidate for the leader of the party.
Okay, but it's not the first time in history, in recent history even, that there are economic problems in Britain, there's poverty in Britain. What's the difference between the situation now and the situation then? Why has it happened so that the struggle is actually now, and that it's obviously the Labour Party is undergoing a very serious transformation, one could say, I suppose?
Well, I think the crisis in 2008 with the kind of financial collapse, and that wasn't just a financial collapse, it was a collapse for neoliberal ideology. That had kind of a grip on a section of the population, and they became disillusioned with it. And in Britain, I mean, we still do not have reached the wage level of before 2008 in Britain. So it's like 10 lost years.
So it's significantly worse.
It is significantly worse than most European countries.
And how did this translate into the struggle in the Labour Party?
Well, people just signed up to join the Labour Party.
Okay, but this happened after Corbyn was given a chance, so to say,
yes,
not before that, right?
It was, in a certain sense, one can say it was accidental that he got the chance to become the candidate. Because
why accidental?
Because he didn't have enough support in the parliamentary Labour Party in order to get elected. But because everybody thought he was chanceless, then a number of Labour MPs decided to sign up to support him being a candidate literally in the last minute before the deadline, taken by the argument that, well, we should have a discussion and different opinions should have a chance. But it was seen as more kind of a joke, his candidature. They thought this would be fun, something to laugh at. Yeah.
Okay, but suddenly it happened so that he received a lot of support.
Then he was a candidate, and then people realized, well, you can actually join the Labour Party, you can actually vote for the guy. Mm-hmm. And so people did. So
it's something that people were expecting, well, not maybe expecting, but were wanting to happen with the Labour Party, within the Labour Party. They, like, obviously a large part of the population in Britain, got politicized just because Labour Party finally started standing for what they would have expected it to do.
Well, a lot of the people, I mean, I know from people who've joined the Labour Party, is that a large part of them have at one point or another been members of the Labour Party in the past. And some of them 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago, and they got disillusioned in the direction the Labour Party took. And so when they saw the opportunity of changing the Labour Party, they rejoined. Then there's also a lot of young people who've joined, who just see that this is an opportunity to change society.
Okay, so this is, I understand, very important in terms of actually displaying that young people are not only capable of acting within the political framework, but also have a genuine will to reform society? Because there is a lot of talk now, kind of propaganda talk, that the young people are hopeless. They can't focus. They are addicted to whatever, Facebook, social networks, mobile phones, and stuff like that. And is it like? Can one say that Jeremy Corbyn and the struggle within the Labour Party now sort of proves all this nonsense wrong, that people are prepared to act within politics and want to act within politics and want to become political as long as they have a meaningful goal?
Yes. I mean, I think it's clear the overwhelming majority of young people in Britain today support the Labour Party, support Jeremy Corbyn. That's absolutely clear.
And they do that not intuitively, but they do that basing themselves on the political platform that they're putting forward.
Yes.
And in the Labour Party.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, what is the nature of the struggle within the Labour Party? Because if everybody supports, or the majority of the society supports Jeremy Corbyn, supports his ideas, supports his platform, supports his agenda, why the struggle? I mean, the Labour Party should be glad that they're gaining popular support.
Well, I mean, most of the people who were members of the Labour Party were glad about it.
So who organizes the struggle against the, mainstream current of the Labour Party, which Jeremy Corbyn now is?
If you consider that during the Blair years, even preceding that, the Labour Party was very centralized. So the questions of policy were decided by a small group consisting of Tony Blair and people around him. The conference was just a show. Whereas in the past, when I was a member in the 70s, conference was lots of discussions, motions, votes, and all the rest of it. The conference was just turned into a show. And everything was tightly controlled from the top in the Labour Party. All the appointments of the staff were controlled from the top, and people supporting Tony Blair and the policies which he stood for were appointed at all levels of the party. Most of the parliamentary Labour Party supported the policies which he put forward. So then you get all these new people coming in, and then they couldn't accept it.
They couldn't accept it. Why? Because it contradicts their political views. They couldn't accept it because they were afraid they're going to get fired as bureaucrats, or they. What?
I think it's a combination. It contradicts their political views. It's they felt they feared for their positions, and I actually think there's an element that it contradicts their whole view of how the world is.
What's the old view of how the world is?
Well, the world of the view of the world that there's a group of talented people who are nice people, and they will try and get the best deal for the poor people in the world. The fact that the idea that poor people, people with the underprivileged of society, the working class of society, that they would actually want to decide things for themselves, was completely against their worldview, because they believe in experts, knowledge, people who can say the right things at the right time, sound bites in the media and all the rest of it. That was politics, that was their worldview.
Okay, so are you trying to say that now working class taking power, deciding for themselves is a viable idea in the Labour Party, within the Labour Party membership?
Within the Labour Party membership, there's definitely, that it should be no longer controlled from the top. That it should become, the expression used is the people-powered movement.
All right.
Instead of what it was called managerialism. It's the managers in the Labour Party, they should lead the people along, whereas it's being transformed into a people-powered movement.
Okay, what does Jeremy Corbyn offer now to the society, to the British society, to the Labour Party membership? which is that inspiring?
Well, I think that the key things is anti-austerity. That's, people have had enough of austerity. They've seen through it. They've seen all that happens is the rich get richer. That's what austerity has meant for everybody.
So it's just, rage against the rich? It must be something more.
Well, Jeremy Corbyn also represents honesty. Because he's himself, he stands by his principles, he doesn't just blow around according to the latest opinion polls. He's stood for his ideas, he's voted against...
So he's a long-standing political activist, right?
Yes, he is, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So I think it's a combination of him being honest, principled, and anti-austerity. That's what's enthused people.
Okay. And that's it. That's he's just okay. Yeah. So, that's a relatively, how to say that, a relatively
modest,
easy platform. Modest and kind of, I would say, no very complicated platform.
The amazing thing is that it's so exceptional.
Yeah,
that's really.
Why is it so exceptional?
Well, this neoliberal ideology is
But do you think it's only ideological problem? It's just that people were overwhelmed. Not in a political class has been overwhelmed with this ideology for so many decades.
Well, that's part of it. It's also the collapse of the old Labour ideology of reformism. But it's also because the actual organizations which kept people together in the past, the trade unions and the wider labor movement, during this period has been whittled down. It's become smaller, weaker. Communities have been broken up, so that it's been a social change underlying this. So it's a combination of the neoliberal ideology and the social change.
Talk a little bit about the labor movement and how does this struggle translate into some movements within the institutional, if you like, labor movement in Britain, like the trade unions and so on?
Some of the trade unions have gone further to the left in the last years. That's the case. I don't know about the figures at this stage, whether more people have joined the trade unions. I think now the battle is on the political field. I think that's the main thing. People feel that we need a government.
Okay, but if you say the battle is now on the political field, what do you mean? The battle between whom and whom? The battle between Corbyn and some people in his party, or the battle between Corbyn and the Tories? The battle between what?
The battle between the rich in society and the majority in society.
Okay. Yeah. And you can see that in the Corbyn upswing in general.
Yes.
Okay, so where are the rich? What do they do? How do they fight against this movement?
Well, at the moment they try and do whatever they can to undermine Corbyn. The media, which is controlled by the rich, spreads all kinds of lies and things about.
And what, does it help? Does it work?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Okay, so there's another myth here. Okay, because there's so much talk, especially in the international left, so to say that we can't win the struggle, the media is not in our hands, we can never meet because they're always going to overwhelm us and so on and so forth. Right?
Actually, talk a bit about that. I belong to Momentum, which is the left wing of the Labour Party, right? So Momentum started out as the organization which organized for Corbyn's victory in the leadership battle, and they have shown statistically that every time the media publishes a lie about the Labour Party and the leadership, Momentum gets thousands of new members.
Yeah, so they actually it's not like it doesn't work, but they get an opposite effect.
Absolutely. That's right. Because there's a role for social media now. People spread things so rapidly.
Yeah, I understand, but the social media can also be a sort of, they also can be manipulated. There's a lot of talk about censorship on Facebook and so on and so forth. But maybe not in regard to Britain. But still, like how, Jeremy Corbyn's been smeared like I haven't. I've spoken to many people who grew up in the former Soviet bloc, and they've never seen this kind of blatant nonsense, in their in the media outlets back then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which were fully controlled by the state and Stalinist parties and organizations, so on and so forth. So the question is like, is it a sign of despair? Is it a sign of what? Like, Czechoslovak spy, then stooge of Putin with this, on the.
Well, I think I wouldn't call it despair. I would say that.
But it's not very rational, is it?
They have lost their orientation in the world.
Oh, so you think it's something more global? It's not just the despair-focused. No.
Well, firstly, you got the financial crisis, which was not supposed to happen. It was supposed to be impossible. Mm-hmm. That everything was going to go fine. Just to let the market do it. So that began the disorientation for them, and then they got even more disorientated.
So you think they're just ignorant and stupid, and that's why they come up every once in a while with this kind of nonsense? It's not just because they're desperate about what's going on.
Yeah, they are a bit desperate, but I think it's more they're in a state of it's almost an existential crisis, I would say.
For the media,
for the the wealthy, for politicians who.
An existential crisis. Well, that's interesting. And you see that globally, or just in Britain, or in the Anglo-Saxon world?
I think it's mainly in the Anglo-Saxon world.
Because neoliberalism is failing, or what is it?
Yes, and because the economy, both ideologically and economically, neoliberalism is failing.
Okay, and that's what gets them so. That's what gets them. That is the establishment in the Anglo-Saxon countries to behave in such a strange manner. Why? Things happen like the poor get poorer, the rich get richer. It's not a new phenomenon in the world, is it?
No, but everybody needs an idea to orientate themselves in the world. They need to know what is certain and what is uncertain. And when your worldview gets so turned upside down, you don't know what to. You just lash out and try put things back in the box. The way things were and all the rest of it. But I think a new ideology is growing up for the rich also, which is what I call neo-traditionalism, which is it's a return to church, nation, and family,
right?
And using those in order to create order in society, because neoliberalism created so much division, chaos and individualization things. So they can kind of see that the old ideas of keeping control over people are having a renaissance.
Keeping control of the people, meaning that people have some sense of commutership and community.
You give them a sense of community, but you control the community from above.
Yeah, right. Ideology
yes.
In terms of ideology, or in terms of what? Administration, even if you like.
Yes, well, even institutions.
Okay. But do you see traces of that in Britain, like neo-traditionalism?
Yes, you had that first. You had the rise of UKIP, but that's the big battle, really, within the Conservative Party today, because the Conservative Party is terribly split between these neo-traditionalists and the neoliberals.
Okay.
And it's one of the main things there, which is the source of conflict, is on the question of Brexit. Because the neoliberals, which were more connected to finance capital, internationalists, they don't want Brexit.
Okay.
But the bulk of the capitalist class, because the bulk is 90% don't trade because they're small, they're not so significant in terms of their influence on the economy, but in terms of manpower, the bulk of them don't trade, so they want Brexit.
All right, I understand. Some want Brexit, some don't want Brexit. This is the kind of thing which is obviously there's a struggle going on in the Conservative Party as well. Not as interesting as the one in the Labour Party, but let's get back to the one in the Labour Party.
Okay.
So how does it, are you trying to say now that all these factors that you've just explained about the global crisis within the ruling elite and the despair in the media, which is like part of the a symptom of that, maybe one of the many, that the phenomenon of Jeremy Corbyn and the popular support for Jeremy Corbyn is also part as a result of that crisis, of that kind of thing. Okay, so do you think it can happen elsewhere? Like, do you think it's because it seems to be quite unique? Like, you've got an old, long-standing, left-wing, consistently left-wing political activist, lifetime member of the Labour Party or something like, very honest politician. It sounds very exceptional.
Well, I think you have seen a similar phenomenon in the United States with Bernie Sanders. Yeah. So, in that sense,
but obviously, the United States is a bit less democratic because they just rigged the primaries and that was it.
But the thing is that the constituency system in the UK, where you elect a member of parliament for a particular constituency, meant that somebody like Jeremy Corbyn kind of continued to exist in the periphery of the party. If you compare Sweden, where I've been a member of the Social Democratic Party for 35 years or something like that, it's not the same. You can't have at that kind of layer in the party. You can't have somebody like Jeremy Corbyn who not have survived all these years. So in that sense,
so are you trying to say that Labour Party, even despite the but Blairite reforms, was still more democratic than the Swedish Social Democracy?
Well, I don't know if you would call it democratic, but it had this kind of unique thing where you could have your local MP, and he had his roots locally. And his position was...
So it's a structural difference, really.
That is a structural difference, which explains the particular type of radicalization which happened in Britain. In Greece, you got a new party being formed. In Spain, you got a new party and changes in the old party. And that's why also the process hasn't gone as far, I think, because it's split. And in Greece you had the particular problem where they got destroyed by.
Yeah, because they were not prepared. Tell me something. Tell me something about that. Because from what I gather, Jeremy Corbyn and his shadow cabinet, they are preparing for taking power. They are doing what Syriza has not done, actually.
Yeah.
So, how did they do that? Like, what's going to happen? What are the prospects for them taking power? I mean, obviously, they're going to take power if things go all right. If there is some major provocation which is going to sort of bring them down. I don't know whether it's possible or not. But still, what is going to happen?
Well, these people, people like Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, they've been around for quite some time. And they've seen what has happened to left governments, the way they get treated, like Syriza did in Greece, or even going back to Allende in Chile in the 70s. They've been through these things. They see Mitterrand in the early 80s and that. And so now they're preparing, what are we going to do in the first minutes and hours of coming to power? What will we do if there's a run on the pound? They got computer simulations, like war game simulations, what to do in those situations. There's discussions with the trade unions in the public sector. What are we going to do in the public sector so that the state is not going to be turned against us, and stuff like that. So they're very conscious of this. I think the main problem is they don't really have an idea what to replace capitalism with. So I think that what they're doing is they're taking all the right steps this stage, because this stage.
But do you think we're talking really about that radical thing? Like we are talking, there is a prospect of actually replacing capitalism in Britain?
Well, I think what's going to happen is that, and Labour has the right manifesto for the moment, which is anti-austerity. It's uncompromisingly anti-austerity.
But is it anti-capitalist?
Well, in that sense, in the
Yeah.
present situation, that is anti-capitalist, but it's really quite modest demands. And, the Labour Party or Social Democratic Party in the 70s wouldn't have thought any of this was remarkable at all. But in the present situation, it represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power between classes in society, and that's the decisive thing.
All right.
So what you get is a Labour government which will be elected with enormous enthusiasm. People want to do things, want to improve things, and all the rest of it. That, of course, will be met with a lot of confrontation. And then the choice will be, are you going to disappoint the members who want to go further and the broader working class, or do you just cool it down? And to go further, I think you need a more developed idea about what the next steps beyond anti-austerity have to be. And
Is there anyone offering anything like that within?
No,
a
I
debate?
think it's a discussion which has started, and I think it's a discussion which has to be done, because in the past you had a kind of idea, socialism was kind of Soviet economy plus democracy. But that doesn't hold any longer.
What does hold now?
Well, I think you have to have you can't take the Soviet Union as your starting point for discussing how socialist economy should look. The Soviet economy was really war communism, institutionalized. It was something which was started out of complete improvisation during the Civil War in Russia, in a situation of desperation, in a situation of war. And that was not at all what Marx or Engels or Lenin or anybody envisaged as a socialist economy. They didn't even believe you could establish a socialist economy in that situation. And then that was institutionalized by Stalin at the end of the 20s as a way of maintaining power, because the bureaucracy could easily fall back into that idea. Well, war communism worked, we won the Civil War, so now we use the same methods again. So really, that kind of economy had very little to do with the socialist economy. If you go back to, say, what Marx and Engels wrote, which they then took out of the Communist Manifesto, in the Principles of Communism, which was the first draft, one could say, of the Communist Manifesto, they put forward the idea that you would establish state-owned industries which would compete and outcompete the private sector in the long run. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't believe that you could create a social economy out of nothing.
But I understand, but probably it's more or less clear to any relatively sane person that you can't have a starting point when discussing socialist economy. I don't know, in the Soviet Union of the 30s or 40s or something like that. But what are the viable reference points now for this kind of discussion about socialist economy?
I think it's a new discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I think the closest I've come across the historic discussion was really the Belgian Labour Party in the 1930s.
Yeah, but in terms of socialist economy, I'm asking, like, if you want to discuss socialist economy in the Labour Party and sort of replacing capitalism, overthrowing capitalism, whatever we call it, then your reference points are where? Like, where do you point saying, like, look, there's a model here, there's a model there, something good is going on here, something good is going on there, like, we could use this, we could use that, like, are there reference points in the world today for this kind of discussion?
Well, I think that, we've seen in the last 40 years the Chinese economy has developed faster than any other economy historically at all. And now it's large parts of the economy are advanced economy. We're talking about in the technological forefront of development in quite large areas today. It's a different situation. And the success of that was built upon having a sector and a state plan as the dominating part of the economy, but also having a private sector, also having a market sector, and actually the two competing with each other. And the dynamism which that has created is I think, the explanation to why they developed so far. But there's a lot of problems there because of the way the state apparatus, it's an authoritarian regime, the role of the Communist Party, it's not a democratic regime, all this. I don't think it can, what will grow out of a movement in Britain or Western Europe or wherever will look differently because it hasn't got that whole history behind it. But I think there's certain essential characteristics, which is you need a state-planned sector, which is the dominant part of the economy.
Do you think it can become a part of the political platform sooner or later as a result of this struggle that is going on in the Labour Party and them taking power afterwards and this struggle sort of deepening but in a different direction?
Well, we're starting that discussion now, so...
Okay. Are you hoping for that?
I hope so. I think we do have to develop some kind of idea where to go beyond anti-austerity.
Mm-hmm. Tell me this, as a campaigner, a left campaigner in the Labour Party now, you're expecting, obviously, Jeremi Korbin and the new leadership of the Labour Party under the new leadership to take power soon, and a government to be formed with Jeremi Korbin as the Prime Minister. But tell me, what are you afraid most of? Like, what are the major dangers you're facing now as left movement within the Labour Party and, left movement in general within the British society?
Well, I wouldn't say soon whether Jeremi Corbyn would come to power and Labour Party come soon. It depends upon your historical perspective, because formally the next election is only supposed to be in 4 years' time. And I think that Conservatives, because the threat which the Labour Party represents, are going to hang on as long as they can. I mean, the party is a big, huge mess, but they will hang on as long as you can. And that's good and bad. I mean, it's bad because it means the austerity politics continues. It's good because it gives the Labour Party more time to prepare. I must
Could
say,
the establishment use some kind of very serious lever to break the Labour Party somehow within this 4 years?
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage.
No, I really don't see this. I suppose one can always imagine something, but I think it's highly unlikely that there is any way they can do for the Labour Party to win power.
So you think that if they try to, present him again as some kind of, agent of Russia when, another Skripal nonsense appears or anything, this is not going to happen like this? Okay.
Well, of course they will. They will try all kinds of things. But the skepticism against media is so big now. Mm-hmm. All these papers, the Daily Express, the Sun, all these papers, which they've lost millions of readers.
Okay. In
millions.
favor of what? Who gains the readers that they've lost?
Social media.
Okay.
Which is, listening to.
Okay, last question. Do you think that the phenomenon is happening right now in Britain, the Labour Party and the general left-wing upswing in the society? Do you think it's something which could happen like around Europe in different countries, or it's a unique thing which is like in Britain because of the structure of the Labour Party, because of the history of the Labour Party, because of all these aspects that you've explained?
Well, I think it's one can say that just like capitalism began in England and then it spread from England because the influence of it. I think that's going to happen. It will not happen in the same form in other countries, and it will happen in different times, and it'll vary. But I think if you get a Labour government led by Jeremy Corbyn, it is already, I know that from different countries where people are forming themselves into Corbyn-supporting groups in different socialist and social democratic parties globally. That's already happening, So I think it's
going to be a clear message.
Yes, I think so.
And inspiring.
Yeah, it's although Britain is not what it used to, it's still a major country in the world. Right. And I think culturally also a lot of people throughout the world look to Britain and that. And this is clear what's going on.
So it's going to be big time.
It's going to have an effect. It's going to have an effect. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan Klein. Thank you for taking your time.